Cardigan weather is upon us. Hello, welcome to The Hither Knits. My name is Gladys. I am a knitter based out of Southern Nevada here in the United States, and welcome to my little knitting corner of the internet. So summer is rapidly fading, well not rapidly, slowly, ever so slowly fading, which means cardigan weather is upon us. Almost. So here in the desert, that means that this is our very last weekend, hopefully of the year, that we will have 100+ degree weather. So in Celsius, I think that's like a high 30s. I think that's like maybe 38 or 39 degrees, something like that. But next week we should be dropping into the 90s, which here in, like I said, here in the desert, that means that summer is finally almost over. So I have been trying to brainstorm different cardigan pattern ideas. I have 3 different sweater quantities. Well, the fourth one is a bit of a caveat, but 3 sweater quantities that I had accumulated over time, and I didn't purchase them with specific patterns in mind. I just knew that I wanted them to be cardigans. So I went on this cardigan pattern hunting deep dive, and I have 15 plus a few extras to share with you. So in 3 big categories to fit the different characteristics of the yarn that I have. So hopefully this video provides a bit of inspiration for you if there are any of these cardigan patterns that you would consider making this season. Of course, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing if you would like so. We're getting super close to those 1,000 subscribers, and I would love to have you in this little community. So without further ado, let me start sharing the yarn and the overall vibes that we're going for with these patterns. The first cardigan quantity that I have is these 2 yarns. So this one here, for the fluff, I have the Surrey Alpaca Lace from Explorer Knits and Fibers in the color Freshwater Mussels. This is from their Farmers Market collection from last year. So it is very much a mussel, oystery, oceany color. Some grays, some bluish grays, like very misty ocean, I would describe this color. It has the slightest variegations with like a greeny, creamy color. So that is the fluff that I will be using, and I will be holding it with 1 strand of Knitting for Olive Merino. This is the color Rainy Day. So I wanted to choose a little bit of a lighter green so that way it wouldn't overpower the variegation in the Surrey. So for these 2, and I should say I have 200 grams of the Surrey. This is a 50 gram hank with 328 yards, and I have 250 grams of the merino. So it should be good enough for pretty much any cardigan for my size. So the vibe that I wanted for this one is just like a classic. I wanted a stockinette, a classic one, a classic pattern, I guess, that would kind of let the Surrey shine, because since it's a hand dyed and this was pricey, I want this to be the star of the show. So I didn't want a pattern with a lot of texture or lace or things like that that would take away from the yarn. I really want the yarn to shine. So for that, I chose classic. So I have 5 classic patterns to share with you, and a bit of information, a caveat, I guess, about gauge. So I tried to go off of the stitch gauge versus the yarn weight for these patterns, because I was seeing a lot of discrepancy, like when you work with worsted, Aran, DK, well, more so with worsted and Aran, the gauges are a bit kind of all over the place. So I tried to stick to like a 20 to 22 stitch gauge. There are some that are a little bit more or less, but I'm focusing on the stitch gauge that I think I can achieve with these yarns, which all 3 of the combinations that I have are a DK-ish type of gauge. So I'm not going to be going off of like DK worsted Aran. I'm going to be going off of the actual stitch gauge. So let me share with you the 5 classic cardigan patterns that I considered for this yarn. So the very first cardigan that I have to share with you is the Mara cardigan by Brianna Mason. So this cardigan is worked up in a 21 stitch gauge. She held a fingering weight double for it. And let's see, it is worked in broken rib with raglan increases. So again, it's like a very simple, classic fit with the raglan shaping. It does have a double knit button band, which I really like I mean, also, I have not mentioned, I have never knit a cardigan before. I've only done, pullover sweaters. So I have never made a double knit button band before. So it sounds a little bit intimidating. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. But I really do like the look that the double knit button band provides as far as making it look a bit more polished. So yeah, this one has a slight bit of texture, but I don't think it's enough to kind of take away from the yarn if you want the yarn to be the center of the show. So that was a pattern that I was considering. The next one that I have here is the Amesbury cardigan by Cheryl Mokhtari. So this one has the same gauge, 21 stitches per 4 inches. She used a single strand of DK weight yarn. And the reason that I like this one is it has a saddle shoulder construction, which I have never done. So I'm very drawn right now to newness in knitting, trying out new constructions, new techniques, things like that. So I would like to try out a new shoulder construction aside from raglan, because I think I've only ever done raglan and drop shoulder. So the saddle construction sounds very interesting to me. And this is just like a really nice classic piece. I like that it's not too oversized. Let's see, the recommended ease. Actually, it has 20 centimeters of positive ease. It didn't seem like that much in the pictures, which a quick conversion in my mind, 20 centimeters should be like about 8 or 9 inches, which is still a lot in my books. So I don't know. I thought it had less positive ease than that, but it is like a good classic stockinette. Also, the sleeves are not super tapered, which is also something that I really like. So this one is another good classic piece. Moving on to the third cardigan that I have is another one from Cheryl Mokhtari. This is the Mia cardigan. So same gauge. This is a 21 stitch cardigan, worked in a strand of fingering with a strand of silk mohair. This one, I liked that the sleeves just had the tiniest hint of detailing. So small sections of twisted rib, I believe it is. Gentle taper, which I really like. This one is made with raglan increases. So again, that very classic common construction. Again, as you can see with all these, they're just very good staple pieces with that double knit button band. So that one's really nice. So this was actually the one that I was going to make up until I ended up switching gears kind of at the last minute. So I'll share the pattern that I'm going to go with at the very end. I have one more classic cardigan pattern to share with you. And this is the one that's a little bit special because I did purchase yarn specifically for this cardigan pattern, aside from the 3 options that I have here. So this one's a little bit special, but I still wanted to share it because I still think it goes very well with that classic look. So this is the Deuxieme cardigan by Tamara Jordan. It is a bit of a tighter gauge of 24 stitches, and this one I bought a very special yarn for. This is the Lithia Fingering Base by Witchfire Fibers. This is the only hand-dyed yarn, like fully hand-dyed yarn that I have for the cardigan because it uses more yardage, it is pricier. So this is a merino, 25% merino, 37% Pima cotton, 38% baby alpaca. So it is a fingering, but it is very lofty and it has a lot of structure. And given that the gauge is tighter at 24 stitches versus your classic 21, I think that I can reach gauge with this. So the pattern itself is a all over ribbed cardigan done in 2x2 ribbing, and it is very like tailored and fitted to the body. I'd say like slightly daintier but still keeping that classic look without being too feminine. So it has a lot of shaping, shoulder shaping, waist shaping, hip shaping, etc., and lots of customizable options. So this definitely isn't the oversized look that a lot of these cardigans are going for. So this is definitely one that I want to knit. Probably not going to be my first cast on, but I did want to share this option. There's also the option of doing a button band, with the buttons, or just doing a tie at the top, which I think is also a really cute look. So that is the Deuxieme cardigan. And if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. And then the final cardigan that I will actually be making with this yarn pairing. The pattern that I ended up settling with is the Calm Down cardigan by Lily Kate France, which is quite a popular pattern, and I think for good reason. I really enjoy Lily's patterns. I have made one of them, and I really enjoyed her pattern writing style, her attention to detail and to fit, so I want to make more. This one is worked up in a 22 stitch gauge, so slightly tighter than the previous two, and this one has a beautiful like shoulder detailing. It's worked in a way that the saddle shoulder appears raised on the right side, so I think that's quite interesting, but I really like how that shoulder situation is worked up. So other than that, I feel like it's a pretty classic tailored fit. Well, not tailored, pretty classic, more so oversized fit. There's some short row shaping on the sleeves for that like extra touch as far as fit goes. This one, she worked it up with a single strand of DK weight yarn. So I just think that this one ticks all the boxes for me. It has a beautiful shaping. It's classic, it's stockinette. I just think that this will work perfectly. This one is quite a bit oversized, so I think I will be sizing down one size from my recommended, just so that it doesn't get too oversized, and also just to ensure that I will have enough yarn for it as well. So those are the classic cardigan patterns that I wanted to share with you. Up next, I have texture. So for texture, the yarn that I have for my textured option is this yarn from Ula and Leah. This is their DK weight 100% yak wool. So I have 600 grams of this, and this is the natural yak color. So it's just a dark chocolate. It has not been dyed. So this yarn still has spinning oil on it. So I will be giving the skeins a really good wash with hot water and some dish soap before I skein it up. I prefer to do it that way as opposed to having to aggressively block my finished garment, because that scares me a little bit. So this is a lovely yarn, and I really wanted some beautiful texture to highlight the color and just like the overall bounce and just texture of this beautiful yarn. This is, though, very soft, I will say. So I have a few textured options to go over. So the first one is another pattern by Brianna Mason. I actually quite like her cardigan patterns. So this one is the Sorbet cardigan. This one is worked up in a bit of a larger gauge. This one is 17 stitches, so might be a bit tricky to reach with a DK weight yarn. It does recommend a worsted, so I don't know, I guess just depending, you would have to kind of play around with the texture a little bit. So it has a dot texture, which is subtle, but I still think that it's enough to give it a little bit of, you know, something. This one is also made with raglan increases. So also the same double knit button band, the short row shaping, the classic pieces of, or like components of tailoring. This one does have samples made up in a short sleeve as well. Now, I don't live in a climate where a short sleeve cardigan of any weight would make sense, but perhaps you do. So that's also a, you know, a different option. So I thought that one was, like I said, just a good introduction to texture without being too heavily involved with cables and things of that nature. So I have one last cardigan from Brianna Mason to cover, which is the Gemma cardigan. So this is where we're saying the gauge is a little bit interesting, because this one also recommends a worsted weight yarn, but the gauge is 22 stitches, which I think is a big difference from the 17 stitches of the previous one. So this could also easily be made with a DK weight yarn. So this one is a V-neck instead of a round neck like the previous one. It is made with raglan increases as well, you know, tapering on the sleeves, that classic double knit button band. This one has a nice little texture, again, without being too involved like cables, but it has that like almost like mesh, I want to say. It's not necessarily a cable, or at least it's not described as that in the pattern listing. So I think this is also a really cute one to consider. Then let's keep on going. Another one that I really wanted to make at one point, which I have decided against, this is the Lauder by Rebecca Clow. So this is one of her mega patterns, as she calls them. So you could make a pullover, a cardigan, a sleeveless vest, a slip over. Like there's so many different options that you can make, all included for this price of a single pattern, which I think is an incredible value. So the version that I was originally looking at is the V-neck cardigan. This one is like you're all over cable. So it's such a classic, beautiful piece with cabling everywhere, which does require, you know, would definitely be a lot more time intensive just due to the nature of cabling. This one has a gauge of 22 stitches. So nice and bouncy and plump. So this one is, you know, a good one, especially if you like to make some variations or modifications to your patterns. I think Rebecca kind of covers a lot of them for you, so it kind of takes out that guesswork. So that is a really good value. Next, I have the pattern that I almost was ready to cast on, and again changed my mind one more time. This is the one that I want your input for the most because I'm still debating between these last two patterns. The first pattern, the one that I was originally intending to 100% make, is the Korshavn cardigan by Tonje Hodne. So this one is a beautiful basket weave. So again, that beautiful texture without having to do too much cabling work. This one is at a gauge of 18 stitches, which is a bit bigger, but I think that just goes with the nature of the basket weave pattern. So this one does have a 1x1 ribbed button band, so I would definitely swap that out for the double knit because I just really like the look of the double knit. Let's see, for shaping, it is a V-neck, and this one I think is actually made from the bottom up. Yeah, so the body is worked up to the armhole opening, and then you divide for front and back, and then you do a 3-needle bind off at the shoulder, which I have done that construction before, and I will say it does provide a lot of structure. So it's not always the most fun in the aspect that it's a little bit harder to gauge the right length, but it does make a very secure piece. So I don't like write out bottom up patterns for that reason, just because I really like the end product of them. And I do like the fact that you finish the whole body and then pick up the sleeves. What I don't like is when you knit body up and then knit the sleeves separately and then graft it all together. I tried that once and I did not have a good time with that. So that's definitely not my preference. But I thought that this one would just look so beautiful with this deep chocolatey yak color. So this one was a big, big contender up until I started to make this video and I saw this last pattern. So the last pattern, and the one that I think I might end up going for, but again, give me your input. This is the Beatrix cardigan by Gregoria Fibers. So originally I hadn't considered it because the yarn weight is Aran, but the gauge is 20 stitches. So I think I could make that work with this DK, because this is a very like round and bouncy plump yarn, because it is worsted spun instead of, no, it's woolen spun instead of worsted spun. So I think I could make my yarn work for this pattern. So the reason why I like it is that it has that beautiful pattern on the front, and then it has cabling down the sleeves. So I think those big chunky cables down the sleeves are just like a beautiful touch. It gives, they describe it as like effortless elegance with a vintage touch, and I kind of agree. I really like it. And I also like how the buttons are placed in the front, so with a little button loop as opposed to doing a button hole in the band. So all in all, I just think the overall look of this one is beautiful. I am definitely going to swatch and see how my yarn works up, given it's just such a different yarn weight as the recommended. But overall, I think this piece is beautiful. So tell me what your vote is. Should I go for the Korshavn? Should I go for the Beatrix? Give me your input. So these are the 5 textured patterns that I have for this beautiful chocolate yak yarn. And that leaves us with one more category, which is going to be the more feminine, daintier style of cardigan. The yarns that I have for my feminine, more daintier cardigan are these 2. So the fluff that I want to be using is the Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair. This is the color Dusty Violet. So it's a purple, but it's, I'd say, a pretty subtle, understated purple with a lot of gray included. And the yarn that I'm going to hold with it is the Biche Bouche Le Petit Lamb's Wool. And this is in a beautiful, happy color. This is the color light pink violet. So definitely purple, but it does have a lot of pink hues in it. So I think this will definitely create a bit of a marrow. Of course, as you can see, it's not a perfect match. So I will definitely be swatching just to double check. And I think this is a delicate balance of not wanting the marled color to overpower any sort of like lace or patterning in the pattern. I use the word pattern too many times. But with feminine, I do, at least my mind goes to lace. More lacier details, you know, polished fits, things of that nature. So this is one that I'll definitely have to double check and make sure that the yarn is working up appropriately to go with the stitch pattern that I end up going for, which I'm pretty set on what pattern I want, subject to change unless the swatch doesn't work out. So same as the other categories, I have 5 feminine cardigan patterns to share with you. The first one that I have is the Jean Cardigan by Johanna Gerisch. So this one is in a 22 stitch gauge in a wave lace pattern. So I will start by saying that I have heard mixed things about the readability and the interpretation of the pattern writing style of Johanna Gerisch. Easily Knitfluenced did a really good video on, or I guess she gave a really good description of the Jean Cardigan in her most recent podcast. I'll have it linked below. She is making the Jean Cardigan, and the way that she describes the pattern writing style is that it's not kind to the reader, which I think is such a beautiful, poetic, eloquent way to say it. And that being said, I think I would be kind of turned off from knitting this pattern, just knowing that it's going to require a lot more brain power on my part to interpret the pattern and, you know, make it work. Just take that into mind, proceed at your own risk. But it does have raglan shaping with that wave pattern, the double knit button band. She does have fabric covered buttons in her sample, which I think is a really cute touch as well. So this is one, perhaps if you're an advanced or advanced intermediate, this would be a good one to consider. But if you're a beginner, just take that into account. The next one that I have is the Somme Cardigan by Cookie the Knitter. So this one is actually made with a lace weight held double, and it is just the fluffiest, most dainty little thing ever. This is made at a gauge of 18 stitches, which is a bit bigger, but if you're doing a lace weight held double, I think that's achievable given how, you know, fluffy and airy that combination works up. So this one is worked in an eyelet lace pattern, and this one is a drop shoulder construction. So you start with the back yoke and then you'll pick up stitches and work the front. So that is, I think this is the first drop shoulder cardigan that we've seen in this compilation. So all in all, I think that would be like a super soft, fluffy, beautiful effect. This is definitely a pattern to consider if you're looking to make something with fluff. The next one that I have here is the Acacia Cardigan by Irene Lynn. So this one is worked up in a 21 stitch gauge, and this one does have a rounded neck. It has raglan increases, and this has a really good combination of cables, twisted stitches, and lace eyelets. So a little bit of everything if you like to have that combination of not specifically just lace. So all in all, I think it provides a really beautiful dainty pattern. This is also one that does have less positive ease than a lot of the patterns that we're seeing. So I think that is a really good option. This is made with, you know, a lace fluff and a light fingering weight. So that is really nice. And then that leaves the two patterns that I was heavily considering for the yarn. So the one that I decided against in the end is the Kathy Cardigan by Rebecca Clow. I am a huge fan of Rebecca Clow's patterns. The same way some people adore petite knit, I adore Rebecca Clow because her fit is just so good. I always know that her patterns are going to fit well. Actually, this is a Rebecca Clow pattern. This is her Lusk tee. I made the fingering weight version in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. Probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of the video, but anyways, the reason that I absolutely was heavily considering this pattern is because it has bust shaping. I am a huge fan of any sort of bust shaping that is already included, so that way I don't have to do the math and the calculations to add it in. But this one is also a combination of both cable and lace. And this one has a satin sleeve, which I think this just looks so polished, so cute. I really, really like this option. Even if I don't make it now, I might make it in the future. Or if the swatch yarn combo doesn't work out for the final option, I'll swatch for the Kathy and see how that looks. So there's still a possibility I might end up making this pattern at some point in time. I really, really do love it. And as far as size inclusivity, Rebecca's patterns always fit so well, even up to the very largest sizes. So that's also something to consider if you are looking to make a larger size. And then the last pattern, the one that I think I will hopefully be making, is the Lyrebird cardigan by Marzena Kolaczek. So this one, I just can't get it out of my head. I think it is absolutely stunning. This is worked up in a gauge of 20 stitches with a lace and a fingering held together, you know, your classic Surrey silk and an alpaca merino fingering, I believe she used. So this one, she describes it as modern romanticism, timeless cut, fashionable details, and charming sophisticated lace. And I think that is the perfect description. So this one has a drop shoulder with a crew neck style collar. This one actually has plackets. I thought it said pockets. I was like, ooh, it has pockets. Placket, I'm pretty sure that's the Australian way of saying button band. And it has straight sleeves that make it look kind of like a bell. And the sleeves, at least in the pictures, it looks like they have a bit of a wave to them, which I think is so beautiful. The one thing that I'm interested in is that this one has a lot of baubles incorporated. I may be wrong, but they look like baubles to me. So I'll see how I feel about those. I might leave out the baubles. I don't know. I'm not big on baubles. But anyways, the finished look just looks stunning and it looks quite complex. Maybe it's one of those patterns that it might be easier than it looks. Who knows? I'll have to give it a try. But I want to give it a try. I really want to give it a try and see how this would work up. So that is the last pattern that I have for my lacy feminine cardigan. So if we're putting it this way, I think this is a super fall color. So I would definitely work this one up for the fall season. Then I have winter with these beautiful misty cool toned grays. And then I can move into spring with a little pop of pastel-y color. So I think I have a beautiful combination and for the next upcoming seasons. There are a few honorable mentions that I want to include, not because I don't like them, but because the gauge, I don't think that they would just work out with the yarns that I have. So I have 3 of those that either are at a smaller or a larger gauge. So let me share those with you. So I'll start with the pattern that has a larger gauge. So here I have the Fennel Seed Jacket by Florence Miller. So this one is at an Aran weight in 16 stitches. So it would be, my DK weight yarns would just be, I think, a little too gapey. And this one is supposed to be a jacket. So it's supposed to be a heavier version. So this one she worked up with a strand of knitting for olive heavy merino and a strand of the soft silk mohair. So definitely a lot more substantial than what I have here, but I really like that it is just classic but beautiful. It's a raglan construction with broken rib texture and double knitted details. So I just think that this is a really beautiful pattern. I am currently working on one of her patterns on the mixed rib cami, and I do really enjoy her her pattern writing style. So I would definitely make more patterns from her in the future. So this is one, if you have a bit of a thicker yarn, I think this is a really good option to consider. And then I have two options that are slightly tighter. So the first one that I have is the Cardi jumper by Vert Knit. I've been really wanting to try one of her patterns, and this one is a sport weight. So this one is knit up at 24 stitches, so a bit tighter than what I have here. But again, it's just like that beautiful classic elegance. I like that she styles it both with the buttons on the front and on the back as well. So the back will give you the like crew neck look, and if you do it with the buttons in the front, it'll be a V-neck. So I just think that's a really cute way of trying to style it both ways. So this one is worked with drop shoulders and an oversized fit. She also has samples that include stripes, which I think is very cute as well. So this one is also a beautiful option. She did make updates to it because this is quite an old pattern. This was her first design ever. This was from 2022, and she made some updates to it in 2023, which I think is really good of her to have done so and to have improved her patterns as her skill set continues to grow as well. And then I have one last pattern that is also a sport weight. So this one is the Chantall collar cardigan by Moreca Knit. So this one is done at a gauge of 26 stitches, so a bit tighter than what I have here. So this one is in a slip stitch pattern. It has that beautiful little collar, as you can see. It definitely has, quite a bit of shaping, at least up top. So for the shoulders, it doesn't specify the shoulder construction, but it's looking kind of like a set-in sleeve to me, perhaps. Slight mini drop. I'm not super well versed with constructions quite yet, so if any of y'all know what construction this is, please share with the group. But I really like the collar aspect of it, and the fact that it's a cardigan and the button ends and everything. I just think it all comes together really well. I think I'm going to have this one as a backup pattern if my Deuxieme cardigan doesn't work out with the gauge. If like the yarn doesn't work out with the gauge for the Deuxieme, I might consider making the Chantall cardigan with it, since I know it's a bit of a smaller gauge. So that is the last pattern that I have here. I will make sure to have all these different patterns linked below. Let me know if any of these are speaking to you, if there's any of these that you would like to consider making. Also, these are all cardigan patterns from last year. Designers have not yet started to release fall patterns, or at least the ones that I'm up to date with. So I'm sure we're going to get even more beautiful cardigan patterns this year. So I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more patterns to be adding to this compilation. But for the time being, we can dream about fall and we can start getting our knitting needles ready. So thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me today. I so much appreciate all of your kind comments and your support. So again, don't forget to subscribe so that way we can continue to grow this little community. And until the next time, bye.